and now in the name of our loving, liberating, and life-giving God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. You can be seated. Now, I'm sure you knew that that brief homily wasn't all. As you know, we've been talking about Galilee and using first century New Testament Galilee as a metaphor, as a way of describing the mission moment that we are living in. That the parallels between first century Galilee and the mission context in which we are living are striking. And so we've been looking at that resurrection story from Matthew's Gospel for the last 3 years, or I have, well, you maybe had not, but I have. And the closer I've looked at that, I've noticed something, that the movement of the text, the dynamic energy in the story, may well be captured in one verb: to go. Go. That word go dominates Matthew's understanding of the power and the reality of the risen life of Jesus then and now. Go. Listen to what the angel said to Mary Magdalene and the women when they went to the tomb that Easter morning before they knew that Jesus was alive. The text says, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He has been raised, as he said. So come and see the place where he lay, and then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has been raised from the dead, and indeed he is going ahead of you to Galilee. Go." And then when Mary Magdalene and the other women run into Jesus, who actually is alive, and by the way, the resurrection is for real. I mean, if it's not, we can go home. Right? So they run into the risen Christ, and, blows their mind. And then Jesus says this to them: "Now, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." Go to Galilee. Go to that place of political instability and institutional uncertainty in the first century and for the 21st century church. Go to that Galilee, to the place we may well fear the most, where things are changing, some beyond our control. It was like that in the first century, and it's going to be like that even more in the 21st. Go to Galilee. Go to that place of incredible... hello, Scott. Good. Yeah, go to that place where you don't know what's going to happen in the next minute. That's Galilee. And he says, go to that place where different races and ethnicities of people all live side by side, maybe not singing Kumbaya, but having to figure out how in the world does the global village live together in our little village. Go to that Galilee, to the Galilee where there are many religions, where I remember in the South, my grandma's North Carolina, you were Baptist or Methodist. And everybody was really Baptist. You may have been a Methodist Baptist, an Episcopalian Baptist, a Jewish Baptist, but everybody was basically Baptist. It was the air you breathed in the South, but not anymore. No, this is a land and a place of many religions and many traditions, and the fastest growing religious tradition is today defined by those who define their religious conviction as secular and non-religious spirituality. Now, this ain't the Galilee we were thinking of a few years ago, but this is the Galilee we've got. And it is precisely to that Galilee, maybe the Galilee we fear the most, the Galilee where some of the things we used to do won't work anymore, The Galilee where it's going to be harder to be church. The Galilee where the cultural assumptions that used to welcome us as the establishment no longer will. The Galilee where it doesn't matter whether you are a big church or a little church, this is climate change and everybody's going to feel it. Jesus says, go to that Galilee. Now, if you don't remember anything else from this address, just remember that one word, go. Turn it to your neighbor, go. Yeah, go. If you look at the Bible, that word go really does pop up in strategic places in the scriptural story. And I know the verb obviously suggests movement, it suggests dynamic movement. But if you look at when the word go pops up on the lips of the Lord, it is not just a matter of somebody moving from one location to another. When God says go, he's not just talking about physically moving from where you are. When God says go, something is about to change. Old worlds may well be dying and old forms of life may well be passing, but new life is about to emerge, however painfully and unpredictably. When God tells you to go, look out, because your world is about to change and the world is about to change. Now, if you don't believe me, ask Noah. When the Lord tells you and the sun is shining and the Lord tells you get inside an ark, you better get inside that ark because something's about to change, right? Am I right about that? Is that big? And if you don't believe Noah, ask Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar. Now, y'all remember them? Now, I know you're Episcopalians, but you know some Bible. Right? Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, the ancestors, if you will, of faith, and God told them, he told Abraham and Sarah initially, this is in Genesis 12, I'm not making this up, go from your homeland and your kindred and go to a land that is not your own, to a people who are not your own, and there I will bless you, that through you all the families of the earth might be blessed. Go. And Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar together are the spiritual ancestors of Jews, Christians, and Muslims. When God says go, something's about to change. But if Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, and Noah aren't enough, Isaiah was the first Episcopalian, I am convinced. If you look at the prophet Isaiah, he was a prophet comfortable in the temple of Jerusalem. He was very much part of the establishment world of the Jerusalem aristocracy. I'm telling you, this was the first Episcopalian. And he was just as happy as he could be in the temple of Jerusalem. And then he had a vision in the year that King Uzziah died. And in this vision, he heard a voice, the voice of God. Now, who will go? Who will go for me? And Isaiah got caught up in a very unepiscopal moment, got kind of caught up in the spirit and said, here I am, Lord, send me. Oops. And before Isaiah of Jerusalem knew it, he was leaving the comfort of the temple of Jerusalem and he was out on the countryside prophesying, thus saith the Lord God of Israel. Go. And if Noah and Abraham and Sarah, Hagar and Isaiah aren't enough, how about Jesus? In this text where Jesus says, go to Galilee, tell my disciples, tell the other brothers, tell them, go to Galilee, because there they will see me. Later in the text, he says, go into all the world and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them everything that I have taught you. In Mark's gospel, he says, go and proclaim the good news to the whole creation. Go! I got to tell you, I'm not making this up. When God says go, our world is changing and the world is changing from something less like the nightmares we often create and something closer to the dream that God intends. Go. But there's one more example. One more example. His name is Moses. You remember that old spiritual? When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. All together now. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Moses, born a Hebrew slave, and yet by historical circumstance beyond his control, a Hebrew slave raised as a prince of Egypt. That's in the Bible. Moses was a slave, but then he was raised as a master of slaves in the big house. Right? The first Christians were primarily outcast, slaves, servants, women, children. St. Paul describes some of them this way in 1 Corinthians. He says of the first Christians, "Consider your call, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God has now chosen what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God has chosen what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God has chosen what is low and despised, things that are not, to reduce to nothing things that are, so that no one might boast in the presence of God." The first Christians were outcasts. They were a sect of Judaism and a pain in the neck. I said neck. For the Romans. I mean, they were as out and as unestablished as possible. They were like Moses, conceived a slave. But then as the centuries went on, just like Moses, who was adopted into the house of Pharaoh, the Christian movement was adopted into the household of the Roman emperor, Constantine. And Constantine made Christianity the official religion of the emperor. And now the slave had become a master. And for centuries, through the Middle Ages, centuries, even through the Enlightenment, centuries up until about our time, the Christian church in all of its forms was part of the establishment. But there's more. Remember, after Moses became a prince, he ran into some trouble. Now, I know you all saw the Ten Commandments, so I know you saw the movie. Right? And remember, he got in some trouble and had to flee for his life, and he ended up in exile, a fugitive, and no longer was he part of the establishment. Now the one who was once a prince was now cast out into exile. The church that was once established is now functionally and practically, culturally disestablished. We are no longer the only game in town. We are not the most popular game in town. In fact, the truth of the matter is, half the world doesn't even know we exist. And I'm not just talking about the Episcopal Church. It is a very different cultural landscape. I mean, even here, we used to be the Bible Belt. But I'm here to tell you, when I have some time off, I like to catch an early morning service somewhere, just kind of slip in one of the churches in Raleigh. And then sometimes I go to the gym, but usually I like to see how the other half lives. And so I go to my favorite Starbucks and sit down. Let me tell you something. That Starbucks is so crowded, I can't even find a seat anymore. I know I can get in church and find a seat. Even here in what used to be the Bible Belt, there are more people outside of churches, synagogues, mosques, and temple than there are in any of them. The culture has changed. The prince has now been cast into exile. We are no longer the establishment. We've been disestablished just like Moses. But stay with Moses. I actually am coming to a point now. It was while he was in the wilderness that he saw a bush. He saw a bush ablaze and on fire with life and energy that was not created of this world. And in that dynamic energy, he heard a voice, Moses, Moses, take off your shoes from your feet for the ground on which you are standing down. Now go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land, and you just tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. And when Moses went, the slave who had become a prince, the prince who had become an exile, became the father of freedom, the liberator, the lawgiver. I am here to suggest that this moment of no longer being the establishment, no longer being the only game in town, that this moment for us may well be, as Winston Churchill might say, our finest hour. Now may be the time when some of the things that have cluttered our vision, we can move beyond those and look and see why we are really here, who we have been called to be, and in so doing, discover the reason that we are followers of Jesus, the reason we are Episcopalians and not ashamed of it. I'm tired of hearing Episcopalians apologizing for who you are. Stand up as Episcopalian. Stand up for Christ. Stand up for being a Christian in a way that is defined by love. Don't you be ashamed to be people of love. Don't you be ashamed to be people of compassion. Don't be ashamed to be people of justice. Now may be the time where we may find our true souls. And I'm here to tell you there's power and energy in that. No, this may actually be our finest hour. But let me bring this closer to a conclusion. If you look at the story of Moses, I think Moses gives us some clues on how to navigate through the terrain that we actually are finding ourselves in. How to navigate this Galilee we're talking about. Because if you look at Moses, he did three things, and those are the three things I want to leave with you. First, if you're in exile, if you are no longer the establishment, you got to go deep. The shallows won't do. If you're not the establishment, you got to go deep. Secondly, if you're not the establishment, you got to go speak. Go speak. And if you're not the establishment, you got to just, how does Nike say it? Just do it. Go and do it. Go deep. Dick Taylor's here. His brother Porter, the Bishop of Western North Carolina, and I got in a conversation at the House of Bishops this past September, and the bishops had been talking about the same thing that we're talking about, how to get the church to move out into the world and not to retreat in fear for what is around us. Notice the risen Christ keeps saying, do not be afraid. And we were having all these conversations, and during one of the breaks, Porter said to me, and I haven't forgotten it, he said, you know, if you're going to go forth, you've got to go deep. In order to truly go forth, you got to go deep. You got to go deep into the life of God. My friends, this religious thing is not a pious fiction. God is real. I don't always feel him, but he's real. This is the God who caused this world to come into being in the first place. This is the God who summoned prophets. This is the God who raised Jesus from the dead. And if he can raise Jesus from the dead, he can pick this old Episcopal church up too. This God is real. And in order to go forth, we've got to go deeper into the life of this God. Now, what am I talking about? We organized we did what we do in the church when we've got a big problem or something to solve. We usually form either a task force or a commission. which Jesus didn't do confronting the crucifixion. Let's have a commission to discuss, should I die or not? But anyway, but we did what we do with Galilee, and so we formed a commission. And actually, we got a group of incredible people to come together. In fact, some of them are in this room. Where are you? Sarah Ball Danberg? Just stand up for 1 second. Anybody who's on the Galilee, come on, you can admit it. It's good. There's Beth. Oh, here they are. Now they're coming out. All right, Rob. All right, admit it. There you go. But let me tell you, we called these guys and some other, I see Sam and Dick in the back, these guys and some others who aren't here, they came together, and for the last couple of years, they've been struggling with how do we help the Episcopal Church here in North Carolina to move beyond the doors of the church into the world as the hands and feet of Jesus, not as just do-gooders, but as followers of Jesus. How do we do that? And they struggled. And then I think they came to the right place. Because they came back and they essentially said, these are my words, not theirs, that in order to go forth, we must go deep. And that the real place to start for going into Galilee is to start where we began and to know it for the first time. To return to the Lord our God, the God who loves us, the God who made us, and the God who will not let us fall. And they said, we can come up with all the strategic plans we want. We can come up with all the good programs and glitzy programs. We can do all that. We know how to do that. They said, but it doesn't amount to a hill of beans if Jesus is not what it's about. And I'm not talking about Jesus like you hear on the TV stations. You know me well enough to know that. I'm talking about the Jesus who said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the acceptable. I'm talking about the Jesus who said, by this everyone will know that you are my disciples. How? That you have love. That's how the world will know that we're Jesus. That's the Jesus I'm talking about. And nothing we come up with will matter if he's not the head of it. So you got to go deep. And so they came up with some recommendations. And I want to offer this to you. We've got a number of churches right now. Now, see, we're not going to do anything real weird. We're going to be real Episcopalian, which is weird in and of itself. But nonetheless, I wonder, we know that there are several churches right now who read the daily offices of morning and evening prayer, if not every day, several days during the week. And usually it's lay-led. The clergy help out, but it's lay-led. I want to invite every congregation in this diocese to adopt morning and evening prayer during the weeks. Now, some can do it 5 days a week. Some can do it 1 or 2. But we can do morning and evening prayer. That's Anglican. And it's in the book. You don't even have to make it up. And so I want to invite the Diocese of North Carolina, every one of our churches. Some can do it every day during the week. Some can do it just one day. Some can do morning and evening prayer. However you do it, go back to that book. Thomas Cranmer, Archbishop, go back to our Episcopal Anglican roots, the real thing. Because there's power there. But then I want to invite you, everybody sitting in this room, since Advent's coming. I like having convention now because I can ask you to do stuff for Advent. Because Advent's coming, I want to invite everybody in this room to adopt just one spiritual practice or spiritual discipline, one for 1 year. It can be centering prayer, it can be gospel-based discipleship. You might want to do morning and evening prayer yourself or something like that. It can do a number of things. And I want you to bug your priest and deacons until they help you do it. Oh, they're going to love me for that one. But see, in Galilee, in this concept, when you're the establishment, you need a priest to be a CEO. When you're not the establishment, you need a priest to be a priest, a spiritual leader and a teacher. And so I want to ask you to help our clergy become who we are again. So I just want to leave that with you. I'm just going to leave that with you. But that's going to help us go deep. We don't have to make up anything. We don't have to be weird. Y'all ain't got to be rolling all over the ground and nothing like that. I mean, I'm just talking about going back to God, the God who wants us so dearly and passionately. Go deep. But then when you go deep, you got to do something else. Got to go speak. I was at the Lambeth conference a couple years ago, Brian McLaren, who's kind of a noted evangelist and all that stuff, he addressed the Lambeth conference, and he stood up and he was talking about this mission context we're living in, and he said, the truth is, in the Western world where we're living, people are looking for a way of faith that these are my words, but this is what he was saying, a way of coming to Jesus Christ without having to be beaten up or become narrow-minded to do it. Folk are looking for that. And he said, he was talking to the bishops of the Anglican, he said, you Anglicans, you Episcopalians, you have the way of religion that is perfect for this moment, but y'all are so quiet, don't nobody know you're here. He didn't say it that way, but that's what he meant. See, I want to suggest that we got to speak up. During the struggle over Amendment 1, you'll remember a few years ago, when there were attempts to enshrine in our state constitution the limitation of just basic rights. You, this diocese, many clergy, vestry, laity, your bishops, spoke out against that amendment. We did not prevail at the moment, but we spoke out against it. There was an attempt to kind of rally support called Against Amendment 1. Now, I'm not getting into the issue right now. I'm just talking, this is just an example. Anyway, to rally people kind of against Amendment 1. And there's this young guy in Durham who had these T-shirts, and he would take pictures and post them on the web of people wearing these T-shirts that said Against Amendment 1. And so some of the lovely members of the staff of the Diocese of North Carolina started twisting my arm, and I resisted. I tell you the truth, I'm an establishment creature like everybody else, but there's part of me thinking, now should a bishop take a picture with a T-shirt? And so I really did kind of resist. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. So we finally went, show it up again. We finally went and took that picture. We went to a brewery in a Sunday afternoon. We had been to church already. Went to a brewery on Sunday afternoon. This was probably in May, right before the amendment vote. And we took this picture. Bishop Ann wasn't a bishop yet, but I guess it was happening. It was on its way. And so we took this picture, and one of our staff folk took that picture and sent it out on all her social media, all sorts of, and that picture actually went viral underground for a while. And the staff member who has friends who are mostly in their late 20s and early 30s, they started asking, who are those people? And she said, oh, those are the bishop and clergy of the Episcopal Church. And they kept saying, what is the name of this church again? And how do you spell it? E-P-I-S-C-O-P-A-L? I tell you, only our Presbyterian cousins have it worse than we do. And so they wanted to know about this Episcopal Church because they had never heard of it. And there was something about a Christian church that would be like that was intriguing, that would stand up for Jesus in a way that was hopeful and loving and compassionate, that was actually inviting. And when we went to the brewery to get those pictures, the place got quiet when we walked in because we had collars and crosses on. And I don't know I sort of said, this must be what it's like for Dracula to have a priest come inside the chamber. And then people kind of started thanking us for coming. And afterward, Michael Hunt and I went out because there was a barbecue truck out there, and you know the hymn, Jesus calls us, or the tumult. Well, that truck was calling me. Anyway, so we went out and we were getting in line to get some barbecue, and there was a guy in front of us who told the guy selling the barbecue, their barbecue's on me. And I said, no, you don't have to do that. He said, no. You all didn't have to be here. We didn't expect Christians to stand with us. My friends, the world needs us to speak up in ways that are loving, compassionate, and authentic, but to speak up. And so Bishop Ann has come up with a way to help us speak up. Okay, I twisted her arm, but she's she's now enthusiastic about it. Actually, she was in Texas learning about it. You remember the story of Moses? Moses really tried to get out of going back to Egypt, and he made every excuse he could think of, and then he finally said to the Lord, he said, look, I can't go because I do not speak well. And God said to him, Moses, that's not a problem. I'll give you Aaron. and he can do the talking, but you do the walking. I know Episcopalians, you're going to say, oh, we don't know enough Bible to quote Bible for folk. I'm not asking you to quote Bible. We're not comfortable enough. This talking thing is not something we do, and I do understand that. And we don't want to become rude and intrude on other people. I mean, you want to scare Episcopalian to death, ask them if they've been saved. So we're not talking about scaring anybody. We're not talking about that. But let me tell you something. I've got an errand for you, just like for Moses. And this errand is called faith sharing. They've done it in several other dioceses. Diocese of Texas has done it, and I'm here to tell you, it is designed for Episcopalians who are a little bit faith-sharing shy, and for our Lutheran and Methodist and Presbyterian and United Church, all the mainline cousins. It's designed for us, and instead of going out talking to anybody else, we're going to do it among ourselves. And so during the season of Easter, and you'll be hearing more about this, I want to invite us to turn the season of the resurrection into a season of faith sharing in the Diocese of North Carolina. And we've got the resources. It's not going to take more work. Clergy, don't think, oh, Lord, he's adding something else for us to do. No, not doing that. This is easy. We're just talking about groups of 7 or 8 Episcopalians coming together either over supper or, don't do the cocktails, do that afterward, because then it'll be babble. We want conversation. And they've got a structured way for people to share their own stories of faith. Because there is no other reason you all are sitting here on a Saturday morning if God has not been stirring in your life. Every one of you, every one of us here is here because God has been stirring in our lives already. And we've got a story to tell. And it's our story. And when we tell it to each other, we may be able to embody it more fully. And then people may be able to spell E-P-I-S-C-O-P-A-L. Go deep. I'm going to sit down now. Ooh, dispatch of business is going to have me. Okay. Go deep, go speak, and then go do something. Now, when you came in here, they should have given you a sweet potato. Did you get your sweet potato? Everybody get the sweet potato? You should have gotten a sweet potato. Okay. When you came in, you received that sweet potato. Now, there's a reason for that, and I'm going to go right to it. There's a reason for it. The Episcopal Farm Workers Ministry, which many of you have known for a long time, is frankly one of the most extraordinary ministries that this diocese does together with the Diocese of East Carolina. That ministry, I mean, it is frankly incredible. Father Tony Rojas, every Sunday, I don't think there's any priest in this diocese who works harder than Tony Rojas on a Sunday morning. Let me tell you something. That brother gets up and starts saying Mass first thing in the morning. He's saying it virtually all day. Sometimes in the little chapel at the Farm Workers Ministry, and other times out in the fields during the growing season where the workers are. He's actually doing the Galilee thing of taking the Eucharist where the people are, not waiting for them to come to us. And he does it, I mean, week by week during the growing season, and then in the mission church, which is a mission of East Carolina that we support together. I mean, this is a remarkable ministry. Over 1,600 people just this year have received immigration counseling on how to navigate the immigration system in ways that are legal. I mean, this is something the Republicans and Democrats can agree on. Right? And then on top of that, they've already prepared, is it 73 people, Sylvia? 73 people this year have been prepared for citizenship. Let me tell you something. I saw one of those citizenship tests. Can you name all the members of the Supreme Court? Yeah, I bet a whole lot of y'all would be kicked out on that one. And they help folk learn what you have to learn in order to be a citizen of this great country. I mean, this is a minute. And then on top of that, they provide food and clothing, all sorts of things for the farm workers and for their families. It is an extraordinary ministry. And they need our help. They need our support. And help and support means prayer, but it also means money. Now, I've been bishop long enough, you know I don't particularly get off on asking for money for us. I don't have any energy for that. But I got passion and energy to ask for money for God's children who need it. And so we've organized the Harvest for Hospitality campaign to work to move the Episcopal Farm Workers Ministry toward a sustainable basis. Reverend Ron Abrams, who's the chair of the board. Ron's right over here. He's the rector of St. James Church in Wilmington. We share this ministry with he's here, and he'll be talking. We'll probably do this in the afternoon, I suspect. Yes, dispatch told me we will do it in the afternoon. But he'll talk with you a little bit about the ministry. But we're going to organize a campaign that'll go on for the next year and a half to raise money. What we want to do is, let me put it this way. Where's the sweet potatoes? You see all those? Can you see them fairly well? All those sweet potatoes, that represent 4 tons. Did I get the math right? 4 tons. A farm worker who picks that many sweet potatoes will make $50. That's it. $50. And so we thought, well, why don't we organize a campaign? If every family in the Episcopal Diocese of North Carolina, take your sweet potato, every family in the Episcopal Diocese of North Carolina, we come up with $50 apiece, we can raise a significant amount of money, somewhere around $400,000 or somewhere give or take some, that will help to create a fund to help to make the farm workers ministry sustainable. It won't solve it overnight, but this will go a long way. This is something, $50, you pay more for a babysitter when you go out to dinner. It's true, when I found out the babysitting rates, I said, I'm going to stop being bishop and become a babysitter. There's money to be made. But this is something we can do, and it's something we can do. Now, I know there are some who will say, but what about advocating for changing the working conditions of the laborers? And I hear that. That's not the farm workers ministry. The farm workers ministry is to be a compassionate pastoral arm to care for the laborer in the vineyard. We do advocacy other ways, because some of y'all have disagreed with my advocacy, and Bishop Ann, I want you to send your letters to her more now that she's here. But we do advocacy. We were there on Moral Monday, and we'll be there again. We work through the North Carolina Council of Churches. We work with the Latino Coalition. We have been advocates for your congressmen and senators receive letters from us. And Lord, no, Bishop Marble sends them weekly letters. I mean, but we work and advocate for immigration reform, for changes in conditions and living conditions for people. We do that, but we do that through the Council of Churches. We do that through the Latino Coalition, not through the farm workers. And let me tell you why I'm saying that. Because the farm workers ministry is something we can all agree on. We got Episcopalians who are Republican, Democrats, and Independents. And we have different perspectives, and that's okay. But I think this is something we all agree on. To be compassionate to the laborer in our midst. To care for the worker who toils. To do good. To love justice. To walk humbly with God. And you know what? The sweet potato, it's not only healthy, but it's tasty. And I bet you're going to have some this week. A little cinnamon on it and a lot of butter on it. And I know Republicans who like this. I actually know Democrats who like it too. And independents. And as a carnivore, I think I can speak for all carnivores, I love sweet potatoes. And vegetarians can eat sweet potatoes. And vegans can eat sweet potatoes. This is the common ground we've been looking for. Let's send them to Congress. So at this convention, we're asking you to begin a campaign. We're not asking for money from you right now, but we're asking you to take this. The Reverend Lisa Fishbeck and Dr. Robert Wright have agreed to be the co-chairs of this, and we'll be organizing a committee, and beginning in January, you'll be hearing more. But the way, for Nets for Life, do you know you raised $400,000? And not one penny of it was for ourselves. We can do that again for the alien and the neighbor who is in our midst, and who will provide the bounty that will be on our tables on Thanksgiving Day. We can do it. So I want you to go. I want you to go and take those sweet potatoes home to your congregation tomorrow. Take them home and tell them about the sweet potato and tell them what we're going to do. I want you to go and go deep, and whether it's morning prayer or Bible, whatever, go and go deep into the soil of God. Go, and we're going to get Episcopalians speaking and talking out loud. Like Episcopalians, not like Baptists, like Episcopalians. I know I act like a Baptist, but I'm Episcopalian born and bred. We want you to go because there is something good here. Go because God is good. Go because Jesus is good. Go because this faith can help. Go because we can help to change the world. Go because the world doesn't have to be the way it often is. Go because God has a dream. God has a dream for this church. God has a dream for this world. Go! When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell to let my people go. I know I speak for Bishop Ann when I say it is a privilege. It is a privilege to be one of your bishops.